Hi everybody. Very quiet without the kids today, all out. We don't know where to go. Okay, my name's Karen Andrews, for those of you who may have not officially met yet, and I would like to thank you all for coming here this afternoon on this perfect Saturday afternoon, first day of summer. And yes, this is a very special afternoon for me. I mean, all launches are, but Crying in the Car is particularly significant for me because it is a collection of work that I've done over the years that has been published or unpublished up until now. And I'll talk a bit more about that afterwards, but I would first like to introduce Rachel Power, who's to my left here. Rachel is a writer and editor who, among other fine things that she's done, has put together one of the most renowned and beloved books about motherhood that is out there called The Divided Heart. I don't know knowledge you in the room are aware of it, and it's one of my favourite books about art and motherhood and creativity. And so I am so delighted to say that she's agreed to come out today to launch my book for me. So I'd really like to welcome Rachel up to the microphone.
Hi everyone. Feels sort of silly having a mic. That's all right. Allows me not to yell for once. So we're here to launch Karen's wonderful book, Crying in the Car, Reflections on Life and Motherhood, which may at first glance look like a slight book, but packs a way bigger punch than its size suggests. A little bit like Karen does. And when Karen's book arrived in the mail last week, I did that thing of ripping it open and standing at my kitchen table, stirring a pot or something and starting it, and I got about, I don't know, paragraph in, and I did that thing that you do when you know a book's really actually going to hit a nerve, and I just put it down. And I went and got myself a cup of tea, and I actually sat down and started to read it properly after a bit of a deep breath and a realisation that it was going to make me feel really jealous, among other things. And that was just after reading a paragraph. If you haven't read Karen's book yet, she opens with talking a little bit about running into a friend in a bookshop, and that bookshop saying, so what are you doing? What significant projects are you working on? And have you been writing lately? And to which she responds with those familiar lines that she's got a lot going on and blogging takes up so much of her creative space and so on. And I get that line all the time. I'm sure many of us do. We get that, so what are you working on? Are you writing another book? And anyone who writes or creates anything knows how loaded a question that is. That's no small question, and the answer is so complex. And especially for women, I think, dare I say it, and even more so, I think, for mothers whose the bulk of their life is taken up with so much invisible work, and it can feel so hard to say, actually, no, I'm trying to write around the edges. But I'm doing all this other stuff that I know you can't see the result of, but it takes up most of my time, hello, kindergarten committees and whatever else, let alone washing, etc. So I suppose that brings me to how Karen and I know each other, which is that I think we met at the launch of your children's book, Surprise, which was illustrated by a friend of mine, Kim Fleming, and we got talking about art and motherhood, as many of my conversations seem to be about. And I wrote The Divided Heart, which she told me that she'd read, initially out of my sense of frustration and ambivalence about writing and motherhood and my struggle to combine the two, and my general fear that to succeed at one would just necessarily mean failing at the other. And I wrote that book when my kids were babies and toddlers. Now they're 7 and 10, which is kind of scary, but I've had a lot of time to reflect on what it means to be a writer and a mother and all the struggles that entails, and there are a couple of things. Before I go on and say what I say to other mothers, I now work full time, and I have to say, in The Divided Heart, one of the women I interviewed, Anne-Marie Deloso, said to me, actually, being at home with children, you're much closer to the centre of the integrity of your life than you are working in an office. And actually, that's really good for writers. And at the time, I remember thinking, it can't be. You know, it's so hard. I don't get any time, blah, blah, blah. Now I can say that I totally understand what she means. Like, you are somehow at the centre of what it means to be alive when you're home with children. And this can provide really good material for any art form. And so now I say to mothers who are struggling to find a space for creativity in their lives, that firstly you have to give yourself permission to create. You don't wait for your partner, no matter how supportive he or she is. You don't wait for them to say, you know, go and lock yourself in a room. You don't wait for the world to give you permission, because it absolutely doesn't. In fact, most of the time it gives you the opposite. And you don't wait for your children to give you permission ever, because they're definitely not going to. So you just have to give it to yourself, and it doesn't have to be for any other reason than you need to do it for yourself. And the other thing I say is pretty much what I just said then. You have a lot less time, it's true, but what you lose in time, you make up for in access to some of the most universal and profound aspects of life. And as an artist, I think you're actually in a really uniquely privileged position as a mother. And that is the knowledge that I think Karen brings to her very impressive book. She's drawn on all those strange and unexpected situations that motherhood, or parenthood really as well, throws you into: playground politics, long-term relationships, the confrontation with yourself that comes with being so vulnerable, the newfound memories of your own childhood. All that is in here inside these covers. It's one of those books that just, you know, had me spiralling off in a million different directions, you know, sparked off a lot of thought. And it's also got a lot of humour in it too. So while we all have these moments where we're feeling like we're making all sorts of defensive excuses to our friends in bookshops, Karen is actually someone who has found a way to move beyond all of those barriers and make stuff happen anyway. And I'd say that's kind of what Karen does in general in life. She's one of those amazing people who manages to make stuff happen. And before I wrote The Divided Heart, I think I was really ignorant about blogging, the blogging world. I just probably got a bit sucked into that idea that it's all for egomaniacs and narcissists who want to tell you what they had for breakfast, lunch and dinner. And I was asked to do a blog to support the publishing of my book. And I was suddenly plugged into this really incredible online community of mother bloggers, and Karen was right there at the centre of it with her award-winning blog, which I'm sure you all know well, Miscellaneous Mum. And this wasn't that world that I'd heard rumours about. This was this incredible community of women who were really sharing the truth of what it's like to be in that world, that crazy, chaotic, sometimes creative world of new motherhood. And I know that those familiar with Karen's blog know how deeply reassuring her readers find her honesty about the ups and downs of family life, as well as her insights on reading and writing. And I can always also say that as someone who tends to read a whole lot of posts in one sitting, there's also something really calming about the lovely reflective mood of her posts, which somehow managed to pull together a whole lot of really random thoughts into some cohesive whole. And that same capacity for revelation and for deep empathy is the thing that is really evident in Crying in the Car, which is such a moving and life-affirming book. And if blogging's the thing that got her back into writing, as she said, a way of flexing that muscle in short bursts and helping her to find a voice, it's really worked. She's got a very strong, confident voice that's really on display in the material here. So those who are regular readers of Karen's blog probably know that she's had a pretty full-on year this year, health-wise, and she still managed to write and publish and distribute this book all under her own steam, which is really quite a feat. And so I think now she can perhaps tick off that item on her living list that says write a book or 20. Or maybe she's not going to tick it off until UBD written 20. Maybe not. So it's my great honour to officially launch Crying in the Car, Reflections on Life and Motherhood.